Tommy Haas. Tommy Haas spent his entire career being that guy who could beat anyone on any given day, but never quite grabbed the biggest prize. He reached 4 Grand Slam semifinals and came so close to breaking through multiple times. His game was pure elegance, with one of the most beautiful one-handed backhands in tennis history. Haas reached 3 Australian Open semifinals in 1999, 2002, and 2007, plus a Wimbledon semifinal in 2009. Each time, he ran into a brick wall. At the 1999 Australian Open, he lost in straight sets to Yevgeny Kafelnikov, 6-3, 6-4, 7-5. In 2002, Haas reached the semifinals, where Marat Safin overpowered him in 4 sets, 6-7, 7-6, 3-6, 6-0, 6-2. The 2007 semifinal saw Fernando Gonzalez crush his hopes 6-1, 6-3, 6-1 in a match where nothing went right. His 2009 Wimbledon semifinal against Roger Federer ended in straight sets, 7-6, 7-5, 6-3. At 31 years old, many thought this was his last realistic chance at reaching a Grand Slam final, and he came within 2 sets of achieving that dream. What made Haas special was his longevity and ability to reinvent himself. He reached his career high ranking of world number 2 at age 31, proving that experience and tactical intelligence could compete with raw youth. His silver medal at the 2000 Sydney Olympics showed he could perform on the biggest stages, defeating Roger Federer and Nicolas Escudé en route to the final before losing to Russia's Yevgeny Kafelnikov. Haas battled serious injuries throughout his career, including multiple shoulder surgeries that threatened to end his playing days. His comeback from these setbacks showed incredible mental strength. He won 15 ATP titles and earned over $13 million, but those Grand Slam major semifinals remain what might have been moments. Tim Henman. No player carried a nation's hopes quite like Tim Henman carried Britain's at Wimbledon. For nearly a decade, Henmania gripped the All-England club every summer as the serve and volley specialist came tantalizingly close to ending Britain's 77-year wait for a men's Wimbledon champion. Henman never reached the finals of any Grand Slam, but reached 6 Grand Slam semifinals, with 4 of those coming at his beloved Wimbledon. The pattern was always the same. He was a brilliant tennis player to reach the semifinals, and then loses when it mattered most. The 1998 Wimbledon semifinal against Pete Sampras was where it all began. Henman took the second set against the defending champion and had the center court crowd on their feet, but Sampras's experience showed up in the crucial moments, and he won in 4 sets, 6-3, 4-6, 7-5, 6-3. Still, British tennis had found its hero. In 2001, his semifinal against Goran Ivanišević saw him lead 2-1 before rain delays swung momentum. Ivanišević eventually won 5-7, 7-6, 6-0, 6-7, 3-6. And in 2002, he had his final Wimbledon semifinal against Leighton Hewitt was perhaps his best chance. Henman was playing the tennis of his life, his serve and volley game perfectly suited to the grass courts. But Hewitt ruthlessly defeated him in straight sets, 7-5, 7-1, 7-5, sweeping aside his odds of reaching his first ever Wimbledon final. In 2004, Henman reached the semifinals of both the French Open and US Open, proving his game could translate to other surfaces. But by then, the moment had passed. His serve and volley style was becoming outdated, and younger players were hitting the ball harder than ever. What made Henman's near misses so painful was how close he came. He wasn't outclassed, he was simply unable to get over the line at the appropriate moment. British tennis fans still wonder what would have happened if just one of those semifinal matches had gone differently. Milos Raonic. Milos Raonic possessed one of the most devastating serves in tennis history. His 155-mile-per-hour bullets could end points instantly, and his towering 6 feet 5 inches frame made him nearly impossible to read at the net. Yet for all his power, Raonic came closest to Grand Slam glory at the most unlikely venue, Wimbledon in 2016. That magical summer, Raonic played the tournament of his life. His serve was clicking, His movement had improved dramatically, and his confidence was sky high. He demolished opponents en route to his first and only Grand Slam final, becoming the first Canadian man to reach a major final. Standing across the net in that final was Andy Murray, playing in front of his home crowd and desperate to win his second Wimbledon title. The match was a classic contrast of styles: Raonic's power against Murray's defense, the server against the returner. Raonic started brilliantly, taking the first set 6-4 with his serve firing on all cylinders. The crowd was stunned into relative silence as the Canadian appeared ready to claim his maiden major, but Murray found his range on return, started reading Raonic's serve better, and slowly took control. The turning point came in the second set. Raonic had multiple breakpoints that could have put him 2 sets up, but Murray saved them all with clutch serving and brilliant defense. When Murray broke serve to level the match, you could feel the momentum shift permanently. Murray won the next 2 sets, 7-6, 7-6, to claim the title, but Raonic's performance had announced him as a legitimate Grand Slam contender. Sadly, it would prove to be his only final appearance. Injuries began to mount, particularly to his wrist and back, limiting his ability to generate the pace that made him so dangerous. The cruel irony of Raonic's career is that his greatest weapon became his weakness. The constant pounding of his massive serve took a toll on his body that he never fully recovered from. Robin Soderling. Robin Soderling hit tennis balls like he was angry at them, generating power that could intimidate even the sport's biggest hitters. He reached 2 French Open finals, but never quite got over the line, despite delivering one of tennis's most shocking upsets along the way. Soderling's 2009 French Open run was legendary. He stunned the tennis world by defeating Rafael Nadal in the 4th round, ending Nadal's unbeaten 31-match winning streak record at Roland Garros. Nadal had only lost 1 match at the French Open in his career, and Soderling destroyed him 7-6 with fearless ball striking that left crowds speechless. That victory sent shockwaves through tennis. Nobody expected anyone to beat Nadal on clay, especially not someone who had never been past the 3rd round at Roland Garros before. Soderling's massive forehand and fearless approach overwhelmed even the king of clay. He was hitting winners from positions where most players would just try to stay in the point. But in the final, Roger Federer proved too experienced. The Swiss won 6-1, 7-6, 6-4, finally claiming his only French Open title and completing his career Grand Slam. Soderling played well, but couldn't maintain the level that had carried him past Nadal. The occasion seemed to get to him, and his usually reliable forehand began missing by smaller margins. His 2010 French Open final was against Nadal himself, a rematch of their stunning 4th round encounter from the previous year. This time, Nadal was ready and had clearly studied Soderling's game extensively. The Spaniard won 6-4, 6-2, 6-6-4, proving that the previous year's loss had been a fluke rather than a changing of the guard. Nadal neutralized Soderling's power by staying further back and using heavy topspin to push him behind the baseline. Soderling's career was cut short by illness in 2011. He developed mononucleosis and severe anxiety issues that forced him to retire at just 27 years old. The mental health struggles were kept private for years, showing how even the toughest competitors can face invisible battles. He won 10 ATP titles and reached a career high ranking of number 4. But those 2 French Open finals represent what might have been for one of tennis's most powerful hitters. His legacy lives on in that single victory over Nadal, proof that in tennis, anyone can have their moment of greatness. Miloslav Mecic. Miloslav was known as the Big Cat for his smooth movement and won the Olympic gold medal in 1988, but a Grand Slam singles title always escaped his grasp. Mecic reached 2 Grand Slam finals, both at the US Open in 1986 and the Australian Open in 1989. His first final was against Ivan Lendl, his compatriot from former Czechoslovakia. Lendl won 6-4, 6-2, 6-0, in a match that was closer than the score suggested. Mecic's unorthodox style troubled Lendl early, using slice backhands and change of pace shots that the world number 1 hadn't faced in a final before. The 1989 final was against Ivan Lendl, And this one hurt even more. Many thought history wouldn't repeat itself, but it did. Maciej lost 2-6, 2-6, 2-6. What made Maciej special was his unique style that was ahead of its time. He hit the ball with incredible touch and could change pace in ways that confused opponents. His forehand was hit with an open stance long before it became fashionable, and his backhand slice was a work of art that could set up winners or defensive shots depending on what the point required. Maciej won 11 ATP titles and singles record of 262 to 122. He also reached a career high ranking of number 4. His Olympic gold medal in Seoul remains one of the most prestigious titles in tennis history, coming when the Olympics meant even more to players than it does today. He defeated Tim Mayotte in the final, with set scores of 3-6, 6-2, 6-4, 6-2, bringing Slovakia its first tennis Olympic gold. His career was shortened by chronic back problems that required multiple surgeries, forcing him to retire earlier than expected. The back issues stemmed from his unique playing style, which put unusual stress on his spine. Tennis fans remember him as one of the most stylish players ever, someone who proved there were many ways to play winning tennis. Nick Kyrgios. Nick Kyrgios might be the most naturally gifted player never to win a Grand Slam. His combination of power, touch, and court sense was extraordinary, but his relationship with tennis was complicated from the start. When he wanted to play, few could match his brilliance. The 2022 Wimbledon final was Kyrgios' moment of destiny. After years of controversy and self-sabotage, he had finally channeled his talent into a sustained run at the sport's most prestigious tournament. His path to the final included victories over Stefanos Tsitsipas and Cristian Garin, and he reached the championship match when Rafael Nadal withdrew injured. Facing Novak Djokovic in the final, Kyrgios started like a man possessed. His serve was untouchable, his forehand was crushing, and his confidence was sky high. He took the first set 6-4, and Wimbledon was stunned. Could this really be happening? But Grand Slam finals are different beasts, and Djokovic had been there 31 times before. The Serbian's experience showed as he weathered Kyrgios' early storm and began to find his rhythm. When the Australian's intensity dropped slightly, Djokovic pounced. The turning point came early in the second set when Kyrgios received a warning for swearing. Instead of refocusing, he began arguing with the umpire and his box, losing his mental edge exactly when he needed it most. Djokovic won the next 3 sets, and Kyrgios' Grand Slam dream was over. What made the defeat so frustrating was that Kyrgios had the tools to win. His serve was arguably better than Djokovic's, his forehand was more powerful, and on grass, his natural game was perfectly suited. But tennis is as much a mental game as a physical one, and Kyrgios' demons got the better of him. The aftermath was typical Kyrgios. He admitted he'd probably never reach another final, and his motivation seemed to evaporate. Multiple withdrawals and injuries followed, and by 2024, he was barely playing professional tennis. Kyrgios' story is one of the greatest what-ifs in modern tennis. With his talent, he should have won multiple majors. Instead, he'll be remembered as the player who could have been great, but chose not to be. Taylor Fritz. Taylor Fritz represents the modern American hope in men's tennis. At 6 feet 5 inches with a booming serve and aggressive baseline game, he has all the tools to succeed at the highest level. His best slam runs so far include the 2022 Wimbledon quarterfinal against Rafael Nadal, and the 2024 Australian Open quarterfinal, where he lost to Novak Djokovic. He's still chasing that elusive first slam final. Finally, his breakthrough came at the 2024 US Open, where he became the first American man to reach a Grand Slam final since Andy Roddick in 2009. The path to that final was remarkable. Fritz played some of the best tennis of his career, defeating Frances Tiafoe in a thrilling 5-set semifinal, winning 4-6, 7-5, 4-6, 6-4, 6-1, which had the New York crowd on their feet. For the first time in 15 years, an American man would play for a Grand Slam title at home. Standing in his way was Jannik Sinner, the Italian who had already won the Australian Open earlier that year. The contrast was telling. Fritz was playing his first major final at 26, while Sinner was already a proven champion at 23. The final started perfectly for Fritz. He took the first set in a tiebreak, playing fearless tennis in front of a partisan crowd. The Arthur Ashe Stadium was electric, and it seemed like the American dream might become reality. But Sinner's class showed in the next 3 sets. The Italian's return of serve began to trouble Fritz, and his ability to redirect pace made life difficult for the American's power game. When Fritz's serve percentage dropped in the crucial moments, Sinner capitalized ruthlessly. The 6-3, 6-4, 7-5 defeat was hard to take, but Fritz had announced himself as a genuine Grand Slam contender. At 26, he still has time to add to his major final tally, but the window is narrowing as the next generation continues to emerge. Fritz's story is still being written, but his 2024 US Open run proved that American men's tennis is in capable hands. Whether he can take the final step remains to be seen. Bernard Tomic. Bernard Tomic arrived on the tennis scene with enormous fanfare. The Australian teenager was hailed as the next big thing. He's a 6'5" player with incredible touch and court sense, who seemed destined for greatness. At 18, he reached the Wimbledon quarterfinals, becoming the youngest man to do so since Boris Becker. That 2011 Wimbledon run should have been the launchpad for a stellar career. Tomic's game was perfectly suited to grass. His flat shots skidded through the court. His serve was effective, and his movement was surprisingly good for such a tall player. When he reached the 4th round again in 2012, it seemed like major success was inevitable. But Tomic's career took a different trajectory. Despite his early promise, he never reached another Grand Slam quarterfinal. His highest ranking was 17th in the world, respectable but far below expectations. The problem wasn't his tennis ability, it was everything else. Tomic's relationship with tennis seemed to sour as he got older. He made headlines for all the wrong reasons. Tanking matches, making controversial statements, and appearing to lack motivation. His famous declaration that he was bored during matches became emblematic of his career. The tragedy of Tomic's story is that he had genuine talent. His touch around the net was exquisite. His serve was underrated, and he could produce moments of brilliance that reminded everyone why he was once considered special. But talent without dedication is meaningless in professional tennis. In recent years, Tomic has become something of a social media personality, embracing the Lord Tomic nickname and seemingly content with his status as tennis's most famous underachiever. Whether he could have won a Grand Slam with different choices is impossible to know, but his early Wimbledon runs suggested the potential was there. So, which one was your favorite? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget, do subscribe, because there is more coming. See you soon.